Hey everyone. All right, so we are here with our next Dio album. This is the set Dio, a Decade of Dio, 1983 to 1993. This is the first album in this set out of the 90s. Sorry, my cat's bugging me. She's already forced me to re-record this once already. This is the first album out of the 90s. It is the last album before Dio goes back to Black Sabbath. This album has a completely different set of musicians than the previous album, and the album before that even had a different set of musicians. And it's funny because some of the musicians on here, most of them I don't know, honestly. The only one I know, honestly, is Simon Wright on drums, and I know Simon Wright from AC/DC. And Simon Wright wasn't on any of the spectacular AC/DC albums either, as far as I'm concerned. This album to me is just honestly uninspired. There's a lot of stuff. It feels like it was borrowed from either Black Sabbath, Dio's time specifically in Black Sabbath, Rainbow, Dio's catalog. Like, just some of the songs you even feel like they're kind of cobbled together out of pieces. There's a couple songs on the album I don't mind, and actually it's three songs that kind of just sit in the middle of the album. I don't mind the three songs. I kind of enjoy them, but that's kind of it. Like, not that it's a bad album. Like, for example, the first song on this album is called Wild One. If I had never owned a metal album before, if I had never owned a rock album before, if I saw this album and went, ooh, that's a cool album cover, and I've heard of Dio, I'm going to buy that album. If I bought this as my first album, and I put this on, and Wild One was the first song to come on that I heard, cool. But that's not the case. Wild One is really fast, really energetic, really gets the album going nicely, but it's so basic for a fast song. Like, sounds completely out of a Rainbow catalog, leftover from Rainbow. Born on the Sun is honestly just not memorable at all. Not that it's a bad song while the album's playing. I don't remember when the song's done. Same with Hey Angel. After the song's done, I just gone. Between Two Hearts. Then you get to Night Music. Night Music's okay. This is one of the songs I actually would say is a decent song on this album. But once again, it's not anything special. It's not anything spectacular. It's just a decent song on the album. Lock Up the Wolves. Okay, I even remember this one getting some radio play at some point. This is actually a pretty decent tune. I would clearly put it on a greatest hits or a best of package or whatnot. It's actually the only song on this album I would actually put on a best of or greatest hits. And it's funny that I say that because for the longest time, I thought he was singing Lock Up the World. But yeah, Evil on Queen Street, I think, is a really good album cut. That follows up Lock Up the Wolves. Walk on Water is just a track. Twisted is a perfect example of uninspired lyrics. Oh man, yeah, it really is. It's not Dio's best work. Why Are They Watching Me? Song stops playing, I forget about it, and then the album finishes with My Eyes. This is the first album to have more than 9 tracks on it. Every album prior to this had 9 tracks exactly. This album has 11 on it. There are no bonuses in this set. but we'll come back around to that when I talk about the actual set itself. Um, honestly, I think the artwork is probably like on a big blown up poster. This would look pretty badass. And I think the artwork is probably my favorite part of this album, really, for the most part. Other than Lock Up the Wolves. Lock Up the Wolves is pretty cool. And like I said, it's not that it's a bad album. Like, if this was my very first metal album, I could be fond of this album. I really could be. But, you know, it definitely was not my first metal album. To be fair, not that I was buying albums when the first Dio album came out, but I mean, I do remember music when the first Dio album came out. I do remember hearing songs on the radio with my dad. You know, and, you know, moving along, even over the years and stuff like that, like some of these songs really... This to me is the biggest album. This is the biggest disappointment since Sacred Heart for me. And Sacred Heart, if you haven't watched the review for that yet, that wouldn't let me down. I was kind of put off of that. And it's kind of funny because, you know, Holy Diver, you know, you got that uphill. Last Line, you got that uphill. Sacred Heart, you dipping down. Then you get Dream Evil, and you got the hill coming back up again. And then you get Lock Up the Wolves, and you're just down again. So I don't know how I'm feeling going into Strange Highways, which is the next and last album in the set. I mean, they can't all be winners, right? They can't all be, you know, the best albums the artist has ever released. It just doesn't work that way. I think I'm going to leave this one here. Yeah. I'm not going to say that this is a bad album. I've used numbers on the previous albums, and this is the thing. If this was 100% completely on its own, I had never compared it to another hard rock heavy metal album ever, I might rate this album using the scale that I use. I might rate this album a 6, maybe a 7. Because there are just some songs on here. Like I said, yes, some of these songs just are not. Born on the Sun, Hey Angel, Between Two Hearts, and Why Are They Watching Me are completely just forgettable. The second the album's done playing, or the song's done playing. Wild One, Between Two Hearts, Walk on Water, Twisted in My Eyes are okay album cuts, you know? So because they're okay album cuts, I'm willing to rate this album up to a 5. And looking at it with everything I've listened to in metal and whatnot, 4, maybe a 5 is where I'm at. You know, I want to... If I were doing this hard scoring like I do on a lot of albums, this album honestly would probably be about a 4 out of 10. It would be. But I'm willing to give it a 5 out of 10 because it's not that it's musically, okay, here's the problem with this album. Musically, this is a good album. While I say it's uninspired, it's still a good album. I really dig it musically. It's the lyrics that really bring this album down. It's the lyrics that really make this album feel truly uninspired. This one just... I'm scared to listen to Strange Highways because I've discovered that Dio in the 90s does not work for me. I was not a fan of the Dehumanizer album, which would technically chronologically be the next album with Dio on it after this. And then comes back and does Strange Highways, which I haven't listened to yet, so I can't say. I like the artwork on it. Then after that, it's In Angry Machines, I believe. And then there's another... I'm missing Magica. and something to do with a dragon, I believe. I think those are the last two I have to pick up. I'll have to double check. But when you get into the 2000s, like Master of the Moon, I thought was better than Angry Machines, and I bought them at the same time. That's why I compare those two together. And the Heaven and Hell, when Black Sabbath released under the name Heaven and Hell instead of under Black Sabbath, their last album was fantastic, absolutely bloody brilliant. So the 2000s, Dio gets interesting and cool and good again, but through the 90s, so far, I haven't been impressed. I don't know. That's just me. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below, folks. Drop me a line. On your way down there, you're going to see like button, subscribe button, bell for notifications. If you could hit those, I'd greatly appreciate it. There are a couple links worth checking out. Peace, love, take care.